Yo guys, it's me Josh and welcome to Let's Talk About, the series in which I talk about the things that are flowing through my head. So, cycling. Now, I like cycling. I have a hybrid bike which does me well for pretty much most cycling things I want it for, and it's good. It does the job. There are some things like doing extreme mountain bike jumps and stuff like that it struggles with, but generally it does the job, and I like cycling. I normally cycle about once, sometimes twice a week, and it's good. But cycling does have its disadvantages. When you're cycling, there are certain weather constraints. So, if it's raining really hard and horizontally sometimes, you'll find it really hard to see. Your visibility will be all over the place. You'll probably end up going halfway and then deciding to turn back because the visibility is so bad. And when it's really windy, that's a problem as well. So, for example, to give it a scale of things, 5 miles an hour, feel a bit, don't really feel anything. That's probably optimal temperature? Optimal wind speed. 10 miles an hour, you start to feel a bit of a wind chill. Yeah, it starts to get on your mind. 15 miles an hour, well then you need some cycling glasses like these ones here, not sponsored. Like these ones here to protect your eyes and your face from feeling absolutely freezing. And 20 miles an hour or more, well, then you'll find it hard to control your bike properly, especially if it's really light. So, wind is a problem as well, because if it's really windy, more than 20 miles an hour, then it's almost a write-off for cycling. Cycling is good, but it does have its limitations, like everything. Like, if you think about football, for example, you can do that in pretty much everything, but when it gets so cold, like the ground freezes, then your studs on your boots won't go properly into the ground, which is a problem because you're very much more likely to slip, and with ice, you could twist your ankle, especially if your studs aren't properly sticking into the ground and giving you grip. Especially when you're taking a shot, you think one foot's off the ground for a few seconds. That's another time you could injure yourself. So it does have its limitations. But snow's another thing. I talked about snow in the last episode of this last video in this series, the first one actually, and saying how I think it's a bit of a pain in the arse sometimes. Well, it affects cycling as well, because if it's snowy, the chances are the ground's frozen, and if you're going off road with frozen ground, unless you've got like studded, I think it's studded tires with like metal fragments or something like that in them, then your bike just won't be able to go over them. It will just get stuck. So snow really does affect cycling, and you then have to buy another £50 set of tires just for when it's snowy as well. So that's a pain in the arse. So, snow is a big issue, and it also affects cycling. You're seeing a pattern here that snow is something that is a bit of a problem that affects pretty much everything. I mean, it affects football as well. I mean, I know we're talking about cycling, but it affects football as well because it causes the ground to freeze, and even thinking your feet get freezing cold if you have to run through snow on the pitch, like a light layer of snow. So snow gives it's a bit of a pain, and it affects cycling. Another thing with cycling is with the wind and the rain, more so with the rain, it will get really sodden sometimes, the ground, because of the rain. So, for example, the mud in a forest, it will go all boggy, so your bike can also get stuck there. And even if your bike doesn't get stuck, it gets covered in mud, and you get covered in mud, which is probably not much of a problem, bearing in mind if you know that it's not been the best weather lately, you probably wouldn't be wearing your best clothes, but you do have to clean your bike, so that's a bit of a nuisance. And if it's really, really boggy, then you need like a proper mountain bike to be able to even get through. So the rain affects that. But I mean, it's not really a problem if you have a mountain bike, I suppose, because you're expecting that. You almost want mud for mountain biking because it's more wet and wild, if you like, but it can be a pain and it can be a big nuisance like that. Well, with these glasses, that's another point. If you just have one lens type, like sunglasses, you then can't use them in winter. So you then have to have get a new pair of glasses, cycling glasses, that have interchangeable lenses, so you can then use them in winter. Like these ones, I had an old pair of sunglasses, which I was replacing anyway because they got scratched up, and they didn't have interchangeable lenses. So what happened is every time when it was winter and just not sunny, if I put them on, it would be a bit of a pain because I couldn't see because everything was tinted. So you need clear lenses like the ones that these came shipped with. This is not sponsored or anything, I'm just using this as an example to be able to actually see properly when you're cycling and keep the wind out the way. Because otherwise, if it's really dismal and dark, you imagine you're wearing tinted like sunglasses when you're cycling, you're not going to be able to see your surroundings properly. And that is really that's almost worse than having the wind, because at least with the wind you can still see, although your vision becomes a bit blurry because of all your eyes watering because of it. But if it's really tinted, then you won't be able to see anything. So it does have its areas where there's more expense needed, and you can't just use your regular sunglasses really because of the problems I just mentioned. So generally speaking though, cycling is really good because anyone of any age can do it is the main thing. I remember my granddad was telling me the other day that he's got an exercise bike, which is not quite the same thing, but on his exercise bike he cycles on it about 15 minutes a day, he's said he'd been doing lately. And he's about like 70 odd or something, so it's good for all ages. And I've seen about 60-year-olds, 70-year-olds cycling out and about as well. So one of the big pluses about cycling compared to other things is that it's suitable for all ages. You can be like little kids about like 5 or something and 50 or even 80 and still be able to cycle, although at different paces, but you'll still be able to cycle, whereas with other sports that is a bit more of an issue. So it's accessibility is to sort of all groups of people is a big thing going for cycling. You don't have to have an expensive bike either. You can get a really cheap bike if you can't afford an expensive one for like 20 quid or something, and still cycle on that. So it is pretty accessible. So I would say that is the biggest thing about cycling, is its accessibility, and that almost anyone can pick up a bike and go cycling. Unless you're really, really like unhealthy and overweight, almost anyone can go cycling, and accessibility is a big thing. So despite the flaws, it is still probably trumps a lot of other sports in terms of accessibility. But there are other sports that do have accessibility as well, but cycling is really good if you're out of shape as well, because you don't need a lot of stamina to go on an easy flat route, as long as you're not in like really, really hilly area, like the Yorkshire Dales or something I think it is, then you'll be fine without really strong stamina. You'll be able to just cycle leisurely. So it's very, very accessible. So that's pretty much all I have to say on cycling. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe as well. I'll see you in the next one. Next video, probably the next one of these. Peace.